Welcome back out to the greenhouse. Today it is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to everybody, and thank you to all of the labor unions that got us all of the workers' rights that we have today. As a proud union member, my dog's tickling my feet back here. So as a proud union member, happy Labor Day to everybody. Today we're going to be talking about our Jean Pain compost heater and breaking it down. And my son is going to be cooking some food right in the greenhouse. We just got ourselves a decent little fire rolling. We've got some tea that's about to be brewing. We're gonna grab some pine needles, throw it in the water in our pot, and then we've got some butter in the pan. He's going to cut this all up and make us an egg casserole right on the greenhouse stove. So while all of that cooks in the greenhouse and simmers, we're out here talking about this Jean Pain compost heater. Jean Pain coined the term compost heating. He was a Swiss-born French inventor, and he produced 100% of his homestead's heating needs through biogas and compost heating. He documented the heating of water from ground temperature 42 to 50 degrees all the way up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit or about 60 degrees Celsius. And this compost heater is about 10, 11 months old. I don't know if you can see that. We're sitting pretty warm still. It was about 115. And the entire summer, we've had a lot of heat coming from the moisture. The more moisture you have in the compost up to a point, it's going to keep that pile active. So we've been between 120 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit in this pile. And this pile was taller than me when we started it last November, November. Right at the end of October, beginning November, I believe. So we're almost a full year into this, and the pile has broken down so much. I wanted to come out, talk about it, and we're gonna start breaking it down today. So you might have saw our little Asian pears. I've got you guys under my shed, so I'm in and out of the sunlight. So we've had these little Asian pears, and these ones didn't suffer a whole lot because they were still pretty small when the hail came through, because they are a smaller variety altogether. These things are absolutely delicious. We had hundreds of them for our market this weekend, and they really aren't well known. So getting a few people to try them, giving one away for free if people buy other stuff. We're just making people aware that there is different kinds of fruit other than apples, oranges, and bananas. So we're gonna be sharing our unconventional compost heater. We use pretty much all wood chips and some farmyard waste and lots of liquid nitrogen. I will explain all that, but before we do, if that sounds interesting, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. It's YouTube, you guys know what to do. So we're gonna share our version of a Jean Pain compost heater today. And before I start tearing this apart, I do wanna talk a little bit, because in a typical situation where you were trying to use compost heat and not use any electricity, you would need your pile much lower than the ground level of your greenhouse, because the heat would rise and then the cool air would transfer back down and form a nice thermophilic draw between air and water. They both work the same way. So with that being said, we've got about 500 watts of solar power throughout little spaces of the greenhouse to be able to run our geothermal, run our compost heater, and heating experiments down on the other southern end of the greenhouse. So by using solar power, we've got zero bills, just one-time investment fee of a solar panel, batteries, and batteries can be expensive. So over the years, we've been using free and or recycled batteries that are still in decent shape, car batteries, and we will wire them together to make a larger bank, having more energy going into the night, so we don't ever have to plug anything into an outlet on grid. So we have had $0 in bills for this entire greenhouse throughout the whole winter. Right now it's kind of a mess. We've taken lots of vacations, swapped engines in our cars, and have been riding all of our off-road stuff for the majority of last month because we're country boys and we like to have fun too. So for as much work as we put in, we do like to have a lot of fun out in the middle of nowhere here. So our greenhouse suffered. That's going to be the next video. We'll be cleaning it up, watering it heavy, and replanting it. So stay tuned for the fall prep, winter prep video of our greenhouse. We've got a ton of stuff to do because we've got to get a new fuel source. I don't want to run this same pile through next winter. I don't think it has enough activity. Yes, it's like 70 out right now. It was about 50 this morning. This pile hasn't changed in temperature, but when you get down to negative temperatures, those temps really seep in. You've got like a 1.5, 2 foot wall of insulation that your compost forms, and then the core will stay warm. I just fear that we don't have enough nitrogen to keep this going through an entire winter. So we are going to break this down again and rebuild it. So when we're tearing it down and rebuilding it, we're reusing everything we possibly can. Very little investment goes back into this. We get all these wood chips dumped for absolutely free. I mean, I trade the guy some bagged up fish or whatever we've got for produce because he's a good guy and he brings it all the way out here and dumps off a whole bunch of wood chips, but they don't want it anyway. So it's a nice fair trade and we can get a free winter's worth of heating off of some waste material. So this thing did kind of fluctuate through the winter time. Months 1 through 3 were very hot and active, and the temperatures weren't terrible outside. We didn't see negative temperatures. Once we got into month 4, 5, and 6, it fluctuated. We went down to blowing in 72 degrees as opposed to 90 degrees on our air and water systems. We had 2 separate water systems, one to heat a large tank and one to warm up our greenhouse pond to keep it from freezing over or getting too cold and killing my son's fish. So we did observe a bunch of fluctuation because we're just using wood chips, throwing in as much nitrogen as we can, and then mixing up slurries and just dumping them on, using chicken poo, any type of waste. We'll go pick up waste from other farmers and mix it in a 55-gallon bucket with water and then dump it right on, and that really reinvigorates the heating process and the breakdown process in the winter time when it's so cold. This dog rolls in everything. She's got something nasty on her neck and she stinks. So before we actually tear that compost pile apart, we are going to check on our food. Oh man, steaming up. It's ready. Fresh, healthy meal right out of the greenhouse.
That's really good.
Man, that's pretty warm, but it is absolutely delicious and nutritious. So we decided to come out here and cook breakfast while we were making the video. My wife's inside cooking up a nice meal for Labor Day today, so we're all doing our little part here. Baby dog, you stink. So we've gotten our whole compost pile unwrapped. We use this big heavy gauge wire and we wrap it around to hold a nice base. You can see, other than where I stepped on it to take my son's excavator off the top, it pretty well held its shape all the way around here. All the outside is pretty well dry. And then when you start digging in, it's black gold. We've got a few weeds surviving on top. I planted some squash or zucchini in the top, and the compost pile after rain got so hot that we weren't able to sustain growth because it was just cooking the roots on it. Let's get up in here and kind of just do a hands-on dig. Saw a little steam there. Saw 100 something. So that was about 6-8 inches in. It's getting warmer the deeper I go, and it is moist and breaking down pretty good. So showing 105-ish. This is a little bit deeper. And it is showing about 110 right there. Go ahead and stick that in there for a minute, come back and check on it. So what we end up doing with the outer layer of this pile, since you see a lot of unbroken down wood chips, there's a lot of big slivers and things, we throw them right on this. I got all my posts leaning on it right now, but this is a massive sifter, a giant sifter we built. We can take all of the outside of the pile, throw it up on here, and all the small stuff will fall through and all of the large stuff will run down. We will have a nice large pile of semi-dry wood chips that we can continue to dry underneath our shed over here for the winter time. So we can have a good pile of wood chips to burn just by letting them sit on here and then shaking them down. They do dry. If we fill this whole thing up with wood chips, they will dry very quickly, and then we just kind of tap it with the shovel and all the large pieces fall down yet again, and then all the small stuff falls through there. So I went and grabbed my wheelbarrow, and about 5 minutes later, we're sitting right around, it was about 115. That ain't bad. So now it's time to do some work. Still sitting about 113 as the steam starts to rise off. We don't waste anything. We use these wood chips for everything that is perennial. I've got all our pear trees and all of these raspberries. We've got some blackberries over here, some of my wife's perennial flowers she just planted, blackberries, a ton of Asian pears. This is what the hail damage did. The hail was massive and did a lot of damage, but we've got all this hot, fresh wood chips that we're just gonna keep staggering in underneath all our plants. This Asian pear branch had broken in this storm, and it's got a massive amount of weight on it, but we might still harvest some fruit and then prune it up this fall, winter. We've got blackberries popping out right underneath. Just a ton of perennial stuff all growing and thriving together off of the free resources that we use to heat our greenhouse all winter. While I'm heading back over to the greenhouse, we've got our persimmons here. The American persimmon. You can see some of them did take a little damage, but we've got a decent little volume of fruit. So this was the goal of this video today. I wanted to get to the center. Now you can see I've got all of this wrapped up, coil around our, you can see all the steam rolling off. Just massive amounts of steam still. Another 111 right on our actual tank that we were using to transfer the heat. So I wasn't gonna make you guys sit through the entire breakdown because I've got a ton of work to do. We're gonna pull out my son's go-kart and the wagon, and I'll continue using this, but they're gonna help me shovel it into a wagon. We got a little dump wagon. We'll be able to dump all of this all over our entire property here to feed all of our trees, plants, shrubs, all our perennials, flowers and everything. I just wanted to get to the point where we could see what's going on in the center. Oh my gosh. That is the most broken down compost we've seen yet, and it's warm. Super nutritious stuff. So with this barrel, we've got a 55-gallon drum, just like this drum right here. And that is full of water wrapped in PEX on the top, and then on the bottom we wrapped it in an old 100-foot worth of garden hose, rubber garden hose, to run it into our greenhouse there, which is overgrown. To heat the fish pond up with the lower layers, we didn't want the 140-degree possibility coming into a fish pond. We wanted about 70 or 80 through the winter time, and we achieved that. Overall, this system here, which we've got air lines that are just underneath all of this. I didn't want to poke them up, so that's why I'm using the plastic scoop shovel and not my pitchfork. So we've got metal air lines running around the outside of this, about 2-3 foot away from the actual barrel itself, and that was to blow warm air in. So this tank itself brought in, at the worst times, 65 degrees when it was like -40 out, or -30 degrees Fahrenheit outside the greenhouse, and basically -30 on the compost pile. The temperatures really brutally affect this, so we had to compete with the outside temps drawing all of this off. So being able to draw 65 to 70 degrees at the bottom for our fish pond, and then we saw between 75 and 95 degrees constant, which those are not constant numbers, but we fluctuated between those, so the average was about 80 something that we put through this system from that tank right here. All of that water inside the greenhouse traveled in and went around our barrel and then back in with a solar powered water pump. We were able to keep our greenhouse alive and grow throughout the winter time. That stinky old baby, she got a walnut. Would you not chew on that? That can't be good for your teeth. Quit it. You got flies all over you because you've been rolling in crap or something. Are you a good baby? You a good old baby? Yeah. You go find it. Go find it. Go find it. Go. Oh, you tired? It's too hot for the baby? Go swim in your little pool. So we've basically reached a point of completion for this video. Like I said, we've got a lot of work to do. Still dismantling this pile itself and getting it all taken apart. And I might not even have to undo the centerpiece. I might be able to leave that whole tank, all of the lines, everything around it. The only one I'm going to adjust and get new parts for is our air heating system, because I feel like it wasn't strong enough to withhold the force of having tons and tons and tons of compost sitting on it. So I feel like it collapsed because we weren't flowing the best airflow, but we did still get air flowing through it to warm up the airspace of the greenhouse. So I feel like we did truly succeed with this Jean-Pain compost heater, better than we've ever done in years past, just because of the sheer size of this pile. And in a true self-sufficient mindset, we waste nothing. Everything I wanted to show, me taking that wheelbarrow over, sweating my butt off, and dumping that compost where we've got the fruit, where it's going to actually be put to use, and where we're feeding those crops. So we also use it for our walkways. If you guys saw the short video, we had to basically chop all this down. This was all overgrown from the last month of vacations, engine swapping cars and keeping old things running, and just generally having fun in the country. So we will come through and dump a ton of wood chips to rebuild this pathway. Lots of nutrients in there, so we could end up growing stuff through here after we put all of our wood chips. The weeds will grow faster than anywhere on the property when we have that wood chip pathway, and it all starts to break down, and all those wood chips basically turn to mulch and fertilizer. So we've got lots going on the property all the time. Just trying to keep up with the homestead can be a bit tricky. Is there something in there, baby? That compost does not smell at all. I knew somebody was going to ask if it smells. The compost does not smell, has no negative smell at all. It actually smells like sweet compost. It doesn't smell bad whatsoever. So I would like to state that if you are in a warmer zone where you don't need a whole lot of heat and you've got an active compost bin or you've got a composting area, you can very simply loop up some hose, throw it in your hot compost as you're turning it, have 2 to 4 weeks of heat off of it, and then basically swap it over and keep moving the cycle. As long as you've got a durable hose like PEX, PEX works great. It's not the best insulator. I don't want to use copper because the copper negates the actual bacteria, and copper is like an antibacterial, so it does have a negative impact, but not a drastic impact on your compost, and it does transfer better. Stainless steel tubing would be the best, but that can be quite costly. So we're using everything we can. This is the same PEX we've used for years without fail. So as I was talking about before, you could also throw some like 4-inch, 3-inch drain tile, just plastic hard tubing that you could put in your compost pile. I had my boss actually do that. He had a small greenhouse. He built a nice hot compost pile. It lasted him maybe a month into the winter time before the temps got extremely cold, and it allowed him to extend his season by a month and a half or more. And it's just very simple like that. You can just improvise. We've been doing this Jampan compost heating for about 10 years now, give or take, and we've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, going from the smallest piles of a ton to up to 12 tons plus. And we've had a lot of learning experience. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, there's going to be a lot more videos coming on this whole setup here as we start to diminish all of the previous wood chips from this last winter and start to rebuild the pile for next winter. We're going to be doing a nice planting, cleaning, and just in general fall winter maintenance video on the greenhouse. So we've got our work cut out for us, and we are going to be super busy from here on out. And with that said, I'd like to thank you guys. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you've made it to this point in the video, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.